Motion pictures, can't get enough. Cinephile, movie lover, and a big movie buff. Talking to actors, directors, innovators, athletes to writers, real trailblazers. Yeah, originator, not a duplicator. So honest, always authentic. Tune in, trust me, you don't want to miss it. This is the Monday Morning Critic. Amazing life journeys, great interviews from sports analysts, even reporters too. Captivating, always top content, bringing top quality. Everybody's talking. Yeah, originator, not a duplicator. So passionate and so authentic. Tune in, trust me, you don't want to miss it. This is the Monday Morning Critic. Woo!
Devon Butler knows just what he wants to be.
Freeze, dirtbag.
Butler thinks he's a real cop.
I meant it in the nicest way.
Devon, you gotta stop playing stupid cop games.
But when you're a cop, people don't sass you.
But now,
Young Devon here witnessed a crime earlier this evening.
You need me to testify and identify, right?
I don't think I like that question. Why?
I'd like to cut a deal.
What?
He wants to be a cop.
Why do you want to be a cop? Look at this guy. Bad back, bad marriage, bad attitude. Oh, sorry, I broke the nose. Think I can fix it.
he's seen a lot of action. But he's seen a lot of TV.
Haven't you heard about secondary smoke? My still-forming lungs may be shriveling into green chunks of mucus.
I want you to drive him around for 8 hours.
I can't. I don't get along with kids. I don't like them. They don't like me. I have nothing to got. I can't have any fun with a kid. You take a kid to a bar. He has one drink. He falls off the stool. What?
You don't have to get up to impress me.
Where his fantasy ended.
My grandson has seen all I want him to see, a policeman.
Their real adventure began.
Put the pedal to the metal, burn rubber. Let's go kick some. I need a diversion.
He was a bad boy, boss.
You called me Piggy.
They're two cops learning to meet each other halfway.
That was just like Miami Vice.
Burt Reynolds, and introducing Norman Golden II, cop and a half.
What are you?
I'm your worst nightmare. An 8-year-old with a badge.
Welcome to episode 94 of the Monday Morning Critic. Today's guest is an actor, a writer, a producer. He's done some rap. You guys remember him for in Cop and a Half. He's a great actor. He's worked with some amazing people. He's an amazing talent himself. None other than Norman Golden II. Norman, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, Norman. Before I get into your very extraordinary life, your very cool life, I have to ask you 3 quick questions on 3 separate issues, okay? So obviously I got to ask you your thoughts and what you have to say about, the passing of Burt Reynolds and your memories of him.
Mm-hmm. Well, that one, to be honest with you, man, I'm still kind of sitting with it, Burt he's been an amazing influence on my life. Well, he's had an amazing influence in my life, the past years, since 7-8 years old when I did the movie. So when I heard of his passing, it was, and to be honest with you, we hadn't actually spoken in quite some time, but it really was like losing a family member, because I remember, a lot of times that we shared and just that experience and filming the movie and more so behind the scenes and just interacting with him as an individual, as a person, and just, watching how he was as a person. That just, it really, it hit hard there for a second. But I was just, after you get over the initial grief of losing someone that's really important in your life, I really was grateful that I had the opportunity to have met him and to have worked with him, and everything that came out of that situation. Even now, I still take away a lot of the lessons and stuff that I'd learned from him. So I'm extremely grateful to have had that opportunity. And it was a very sad day, very sad occasion for me. But it's all good. You know?
Yeah, and you know, I gotta believe, you know, Cop and a Half comes out in '93. You're roughly 8 years old. I mean, at that age, man, like you're such. I mean, I don't know how anybody at that age could do what you did in that movie. You're so good. You're so talented. You know, people love you in it. Roger Ebert loves you in it. You know, I don't know, man. I would think that you look at Burt Reynolds at the age of 8. Yeah, he's your coworker. He's an actor that you know, and he's famous. But he's almost like a father figure at that age too, Norman.
Yeah, well, I mean, in my case, you know, because I have an amazing parental unit. You know, I was fortunate enough to have had, you know, both father and mother,
right,
you know, in the household. So, you know, I have an amazing father. So that, you know, in terms of him being a father figure, you know, he was more or less, I would say, like a really cool uncle. If that makes sense. Seeing that, you know, like I said, once again, I have an amazing father. But yeah, I mean, I could totally agree with that sentiment. I mean, he did, you know, have a lot of great, you know, fatherly figure traits, and he really did. You know, he took me under his wing as if I was his son. On Facebook, I had an opportunity I took the opportunity to kind of you know, share my thoughts and memories to him, and in that. The time when it was in between shots. It was actually one of the weekends that we weren't that I wasn't working, which was rare because we were working like a lot all the time. And he surprised us. He called and he's like, "Hey, do you guys want to go to Busch Gardens?" And so, you know, Busch Gardens is it's like an amusement park there in Tampa, Florida.
Right.
So, you know, we're like, yeah, why not? You know, and he's like, yeah, we'll make it like a father-son day. And he had just he'd adopted his son, Quentin, at the time.
Right.
So, you know, we're like, okay, we'll make a day of it. We're just going to drive to the park. And, you know, I'm thinking, you know, because I've been to amusement parks and whatnot. So he's like, yeah, meet us over here at the, you know, the helipad. And so, you know, we go and then, like, we show up and there's this helicopter. And, you know, so we get in the helicopter and we fly to the park. And when we get to the park, there's like, you know, this is my first experience with this, like, you know, not having to wait in lines and, you know, you just kind of have access to the entire park.
Wow.
So it was just, you know, an amazing day. And then aside from, you know, like all of that fancy stuff, like riding the helicopter and all, it's just spending time with him and my dad and Quentin and just seeing how he was as, you know, a father. I mean, even though, you know, he was an adoptive father, but he did have that, those qualities of a great father. And I mean, there's stories about Burt Reynolds, which I don't really want to get into. I mean, because, you know, as a celebrity, we become acceptable targets. Sometimes people, you know, love to.
Sure.
So, you know, you would hear these stories about, oh, he's this, that, you know, blah, 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 whatever. But my experience with him was just that of a very authentic person. Yes, he was human, so he did have flaws. He did have, you know, things that your ordinary person would have. But, you know, even to the day that he died, he was a very gracious person, a very, like I said, authentic. I already mentioned authentic, and just an overall, all-around good guy. I can't really say anything negative about him.
And Norman, when you guys went to Busch Gardens, was this before filming, after filming?
It was during. Like I said, it was a long weekend where I didn't have it was like a 3-day weekend, which was rare because, like I said, him and I were the protagonists of the movie, so we were working all the time. So we took advantage of that opportunity to kind of hang out a little bit, and you know.
Yeah, and I probably used the wrong. Yeah, and I probably used the wrong word. I said father figure. I probably should have said like mentor. I mean, at age 8, can you learn as an actor from a guy like that? Do you remember a lesson, like even a little lesson? Can you remember learning from a legendary actor like that?
There's many. I definitely say yes to both of those. Well, that question into that statement of him being more of a mentor.
Right.
Yes. I mean, there was. how do I put this? I mean, there's many different lessons, things that you can learn and take from an individual, as an actor, just as a person, in general. And yes, Burt Reynolds was, I have to say, like, my first experience in doing a major motion picture like that couldn't have been. I mean, it couldn't have been with a better person in terms of just, showing me how to be in terms of, like, with your fans and just as an artist, as an actor, period, outside of, the technical, bits of, like, hitting your mark and memorizing your lines and, working with your co-star and all that stuff. Like, he showed me, like, what it was like. And I think, he like, the lessons that I learned from him was magnificent. And it's not just about how to be an actor, like I mentioned before, but just life lessons, things that I could, carry out in daily life. So not only was he a mentor in a sense that, Burt Reynolds was at one point the biggest box office grossing star in Hollywood.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a lot that he went through to get to that point, and he had no issue with, sharing that in just the way that he interacted with me and others. And, even, like, actually saying, okay, well, hey, Norm, when you do this, when you do that, blah, 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 like, actually verbally saying, hey, like, giving tidbits of advice and whatnot. So, I mean, he was great in that way. And like I said, I'm really, really grateful to have had the opportunity to work with him. And even to this day, 25 years later, it's a lot of those gems are still with me.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear you say 25 years later. My God, it doesn't even seem that long. My God, what's up, Norman? It doesn't seem this long.
I mean, you're saying you think it's crazy. I'm sitting after I said that. I'm like, damn, getting old.
Yeah, and your learning experience. I mean, Cop and a Half. I love it, and I still love it to this very day. I watched it before our interview. I love this movie. This movie's a great movie. It's a cute movie. It's a really sweet movie that any kid can appreciate, any adult can appreciate. So I guess one of the other big things here I wanted to ask you, and I when I saw this, I'm like, there's another thing I want to ask Norman. So Henry Winkler is the director of Cop and a Half, and I'm watching the Emmys, and he wins his first Emmy at 71 years old. I mean, how great is that?
That is pretty awesome. Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah, and I got to believe that, you talk about you said all those positive things about Burt Reynolds, and I believe all of it. But I got to believe working for a director like Henry Winkler was pretty cool too, and pretty helpful. And he's kind of a guy that's very good with people, and especially kids.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the interesting thing about that, because Henry Winkler actually, like, look at Henry Winkler and you look at Burt Reynolds. Like, Henry Winkler had kids. Burt Reynolds didn't. Well, he had just adopted Quentin, so he wasn't, like, with kids. But you could never tell between the two, because basically what I'm saying, like, Henry was had been a father longer, and Burt hadn't. But the way in which they both interacted with me was just, it was amazing. I remember Henry, and once again, I mean, there's a lot of things that I learned from Henry as well. He was a great teacher of all things, cinematic as well. One of the major things that I took away from Henry, he had this thing where he didn't want me to, actually, as a matter of fact, he said, I only have one major rule, or two major, well, no, actually it was two rules, but one of them, it was like a twofold thing. And the first rule was I was not allowed to have any sugar or sweets or candy when I was working on set. So when I went to the craft service table, like, the craft service guys already knew, okay, Norm can't have, the Snickers, but I was able to have, like, vegetables and, like, granola bars, that sort of thing. And to this day, I think it's because of Cop and a Half that I'm like, I love baby carrots. I ended up eating a lot of baby carrots. I don't know why. Thanks, Henry. So that was rule number one. And rule number two was I had to make sure that I was in bed at a decent hour so that I could, have recharge my batteries and whatnot. And I always, I had to respect my parents. And that last one, he's like, you had this like little talking to. It's like, it seems like, you come from, which I do. I come from a very good background. And he's like, I don't think that would be an issue, but, I don't want to hear about you like being a little, getting a little like beside yourself because of all this stuff that's happening, because that's not a cool thing. So that's one thing that I remembered. I'm like, of course I'm 7 and I'm going, oh, okay, thanks. But I understand now, why that was, why that was important, because, you do hear a lot about, former child actors and how they've kind of gone astray. And I think a lot of people contribute that to the fact that, they may have been brats because like they're not working, or they're no longer in the limelight. But I think, what happens is they kind of maybe lose their way and lose their, and don't get me wrong, like I'm not speaking on, why some former child actors kind of go to the wayside or whatnot, but I feel like that bit of advice or that, somewhat of a mandate was necessary to kind of, help to keep, me level-headed as an individual, as a child at that time, And fortunately, I mean, it was just, from him saying that, it was more of just kind of reiterating, my parents had already, of course, they're like, okay, dude, you are an actor, this is what you do. When you here, when you go home, you still got chores. You still have, because I have I have 2 other siblings as well. So it's like, you're still a part of the family. So you're not, you're very special to us, but you're not the star. You know what I mean? Like, keep that shit in check. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, yeah. And then also too, they, and on the hand, they did celebrate. My parents and my family, they celebrated, success as well. So it was a great balance, I should say. And I think, people like Henry Winkler and Burt Reynolds really, helped to kind of, keep that balance, which, like I said, I couldn't have been more fortunate to work with guys like that, my first time out.
Yeah, well said. And you couldn't have found 2 more opposite people as far as personality than Henry Winkler and Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to allude to, earlier when I made the statements. Like, yeah, they were, and it's interesting because their working relationship was, I'll just keep it at interesting. Burt was, he had a certain style and things and the way that he wanted to do things, and Henry, with that being his first directorial debut, he was very adamant about, like, I think kind of maybe proving that he could do it. And, it's kind of like, from Bert's perspective, like, dude, calm down. Like, it's not that serious. And it's like, no, blah, 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 and I'm just, at certain moments, I'm able to watch this, like, what is going on? Yeah.
Norman, it's like Burt Reynolds in real life was the Fonz, and like Henry Winkler is like that's what makes the Fonz the character from Happy Days. So like special, it's like that's not even close to who Henry Winkler is, but that is
absolutely not.
Yeah, so that is kind of like who Burt Reynolds is, right? The cool guy, the macho guy, and that's kind of like who he is.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, Norman, you mentioned this twice already. Your parents seem like pretty special people in your life.
They are very, very special people. I definitely give them a shout out, and kudos whenever I can, because once again, a lot of people don't understand when child actors are in the spotlight. I mean, in a lot of cases, they really sacrifice this involved. Meaning, they have to take time to run the kid to auditions, or when they do. For 3 months. Now I have fortunately it was during the summer months, but it's still like, okay, well, who's gonna take the kid to do this work while we still have jobs, because we have a family that we have to take care of, and this is the entertainment industry, so it's not guaranteed that this is going to make this kid a star, and, you know, we're going to be able to, like, parlay, you know, his success and the, you know, us being able to make a living for ourselves, so to speak. So how do we juggle our normal life versus, you know, with his dream since he was like a toddler? So I definitely have to give, you know, kudos and hats off to my parents, because they, you know, they could have said, well, you know, that's great, Norm. We know that you know, you can be successful, but do that when you turn 18 and you can make your own decisions.
Yeah, and before I leave the family conversation here, how were your siblings' reaction to, like, my God, their brother is now on the big screen with all these superstars? Like, wow, I mean, what was the reaction of your siblings? Were they like, you know, that's our brother, we love him? Was there a little jealousy? How does that shake out?
It was a lot of they're very proud, you know, and it was like, yes, this is our brother, we love him, and it was almost like I can't believe that this is actually, like, this is our brother, like this little guy that we're just kind of used to him, you know, being around, and he's now, like, doing this. This is crazy. So it was a mixture of that and being really, really proud. You know, and once again, I mean, they're troopers as well, because once again, a lot of people don't understand, you know, the residue of, you know, being in the limelight or being, you know, having that kind of career at such a young age. And, you know, your family members, there's a lot of things that they have to kind of deal with as well. And, sure. You know, it's like I decided that I wanted to do that. My parents supported me. I did that. And then now we're, like, swept into this life, and everybody, you know, we really all graciously, I feel like we graciously handled it, which, you know, like I said, hats off and kudos to my family. Yeah,
and I did want to ask you a question. I have a few about, you know, being a child actor that has that much success this early. But I did want to ask you kind of a tough question, and follow me on this. So today's a tough day, right? Because it's an ugly day, too, where Cosby is sentenced today. But I don't want to focus on him on this question. I want to focus on the show he left behind and the wonderful cast that was on that show. You know, you're a little younger than me. I'm about 9-10 years older than you, Norman. I loved that show growing up. It taught me so many wonderful things. I guess my question is this, because you're an actor, you're a good actor. If you're a cast member of that show, are you still proud of the work you put in? How does that work? I mean, if you don't want to answer this question, I get it. But, like, it's just, the show still has so much value in the messages it sends. But then you see it's like such a difficult situation that I feel like nobody's talking about it. And I don't want to get into the, you know, the accusations and the guilty. I don't really care so much about that. But the show itself and what it offers, do you think that changes now?
You know, I think it'll only change based on, you know, the perception of the viewer and how they choose to, you know, what value I think they place on, you know, whether it's, you know, the message or the messenger.
Right.
You know, there's that saying about, you know, I may be getting it wrong here, but follow me, like, don't shoot the messenger, take the message, or something like that.
Right.
But I feel like, you know, yes, Cosby, you know, and for the record, like, I mean, I, as an individual, because I have sisters, and, you know, like, I don't by any means condone or try to make excuses for anybody that's, like, I mean, that's a very, it's a very, not tricky, but it's a very serious subject, and it's one that I take very seriously. So,
of course,
you know,
of course,
I'm not gonna. I don't want to speculate as to, you know, his guilt or not. You know, I don't want to really get into that. But I will. You know, I'll stick to your.
So it's like it's like the same situation that, like, the cast of Roseanne is facing, right? Like,
well, yeah, and what I was getting ready to say is I think that, you know, it's unfortunate that, you know, there's a lot of other people that have put their blood, sweat, and tears into their craft and their art, you know, that now have to suffer because of the actions of an individual or, you know, a situation that has occurred. And I feel like, you know, there's, and by the way, just on another note, but it's necessary to what we're talking about. I'm actually writing a memoir, and the tentative title is Two Sides to a Story. And in that, I talk a lot about, how people tend to go with the story, or go with things that are fed to them, as opposed to really actually using their own mind and looking at things going, okay, it is possible that there is something else that's going on here. And I'm not speaking on the fact that, saying that, like I said, Cosby's innocence or
I hear you.
or Roseanne's innocence or whatever, but
right.
more or less saying that in that situation, it's more than Cosby that has been affected by this situation. And I feel like people, especially in America, and I'm treading very lightly on saying that last part, but I think just because this has been my experience here, it's like we tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater, as opposed to saying, okay, this man did this, but these people still have to make a living. They're not, I'm sure they don't condone whatever's been happening or whatever the accusations are, so why are they now having to suffer because of affiliation, because of something that, like I said, they put their blood, sweat, and tears into their craft. As an actor, I know. When you're working on a sitcom day in and day out, like it can get grueling. And these guys, they worked hard. So for them to have to now, the shows are not playing, so that they don't get any of their residuals, and things are kind of, it's a little different for them now. And people, like I said, that legacy has been tarnished because of the actions of one man. I think that part I don't necessarily agree with, and I feel like as a society we all should really become a little bit more cognizant of, like I said, those two sides, and also become a lot more responsible. For him to have gotten away with this, and it's now coming to the forefront years later. someone somewhere somehow knew what was going on. And I don't care if you're Cosby, I don't care if whoever you are, if you're, excuse my expression, but if you're fucking over other people, your status, to me, that's the gross part. That people would actually be like, oh, well, Cosby, I'll take the money. No, absolutely not. You don't get a chance. I don't care who you are. You don't get a chance to screw over another human being, and then it's just brushed under the rug because of your celebrity status.
Well said, Norman. And, that's kind of my thing here. It's like, all these people pay this price because of kind of what happens. But here's the thing that people won't admit now, right? So, I'm white, you're African American, people are Hispanic out there. Everyone was touched by the Cosby Show, right? And anybody that tells you they're not is full of shit, because that show touched a lot of lives when it was in its heyday. So it's like, I don't know,
regardless of what's going on,
right? So ignore
what's going on with Cosby. That what you just said is the most important thing, and I feel like we all should honor that. I don't care. You know what I mean? Because it's a very important show.
Oh, I agree. I agree completely. And and I just, you bring up so many good points. I'm not gonna, I can't top what you said, because you said it perfectly. And it's if anything, it's just upsetting for the victims. It's upsetting for people who appreciate it and love the work. And it's just a shitty thing, Norman. That's about as good as I can say it. It's just awful. But let's get more positive here, because you worked with some amazing people, right? So if I'm off on any of these, let me know. Maya Angelou, and I did not mean to leave off Ruby Dee, because I'm going to come back to Cop and Half. She's amazing. Oprah, Patrick Stewart, Joan Plowright, who's amazing. Did you get a chance to work with Gregory Peck?
I didn't actually work directly with Gregory Peck, but I was fortunate enough to spend some time with him when we were filming Moby Dick at the wrap party, and he was there kind of watching some of he was there during some of the filming of some of my scenes, actually, with namely the scenes with myself and Patrick Stewart when my character Pip had gone crazy. He'd gotten lost at sea, and then they found him, and he'd gone crazy, and he thought the captain was his master, and he wanted to, he's just he couldn't the captain couldn't shake him, so he ended up in his his study and all that stuff. So he was there during that part of filming, and I mean just once again another. Very fortunate. I feel had the opportunity to, I wouldn't say necessarily work with him, but be in his presence and just kind of be, and have, share a film, some screen time with him, if that makes sense.
No, it certainly makes sense. And those are some amazing names. And, just a general question out of any of those names, or if I missed anybody, is there any advice? And like I said, you're 8 years old, and younger in some cases, and a little bit older in others. Is there advice that you remember from somebody that is well known that you still carry with you today, Norman? Is there advice that somebody told you at the age of 8 that you either still carry with you today, or you still remember today?
Well, like I said, as far as advice goes,
or it could be a moment. It could be a teachable moment. It could be anything.
I mean, I've had a famous mom, Oprah. I've had another famous mom, actually, Miss King. She passed away several years ago as well. Martin Luther King's eldest child. She played my mom in a film that I did with Wesley Snipes. So that's one person that I feel like I should name. She mentioned that was left out, but I digress a bit. I'll get to the story. So yes, Maya Angelou. There was a time when right before we started filming the movie with Oprah, she played my grandmother in that film. There Are No Children Here. So we were at Harpo Studios when it was still standing. It's torn down now, which is kind of crazy. But
yeah.
So we're at Harpo Studios, and they're showing us the sets. They recreated this housing project apartment, right? And because the name of the movie was There Are No Children, so it was about this family who had the projects, and this mom, she had in real life she had 8 children, I think, Joan Rivers, and in this film it was 4 or 5 or something like that. Anyway, family trying to get out of the projects. So we're there at the set. This is before production, so we're still in rehearsals and did the table read and all that. So it's myself, my dad, Oprah, 2 of the set designers, the producer, the director, and Maya Angelou, and one of her people, her assistants. So we get to the living room of the set, and so she sits down in this, chair, like grandma would, and we're all gathered around, and the set designers are, they're going all over, yeah, we created this set, and it's great. And then, I'm looking around going, this is like a shithole. As a kid, I'm thinking in my mind, wow, I can't believe people in the projects actually live like this. I mean, I this is really, I mean, it was a bit over the top, and so we're all just kind of standing around. So I noticed, Oprah, she's looking and she's listening to the guys, and then she's saying, they're giving stories of, how they went and they scouted locations in the actual projects and how scary it was, and they got the pictures and then just to a T and all this stuff, right? So I'm looking at Oprah and she's looking at Miss Angelou, and so Maya Angelou is sitting in the chair and she's nodding and she has a little smile, and so finally the room goes quiet because she hasn't said anything. And so they're like, okay, so finally Oprah's like, so what do you think about this? And she's like, well, she's very, she's poetic, and she has this really heavy, deep voice. She's like, well, I and just paraphrasing what she said, because it's been many years ago. She's like, I don't want to admonish you guys' work. You've done a fabulous job at, recreating what it is you wanted to recreate. Right? And I'm like, right now, damn. But I will say, I remember growing up, and I grew up in poor environments, and I know that sometimes you don't have a lot things, you may not have a lot, but basically what she was saying was we may have been poor and we didn't have a lot, but we were not nasty. We weren't filthy. We took care and we took pride in the things that we did have, because we didn't know when, if something broke, we couldn't just go to the store and replace it. So, because they had like the tarnished furniture and just like broken stuff around, and she's like, we didn't live like this. So I kid you not, man, it was a good probably 3 minutes of total silence after she finished talking. And she said some other things, more or less saying, you guys, I want you guys to, really understand that poverty is not, akin to like being nasty or being, even crime. People, like to make it, but it's no. And the story that we're telling, we can tell the story without having to follow those stereotypes, basically, is what she was saying. So after about 3 minutes of silence, Oprah looks at the set designers and the director, and the set designers are like, well, it looks like we have some work to do. So long story short, by the time we showed up on set, this was like the second week of rehearsal, so the following week, within the next week or so, that set looked a lot different than it did when our initial walkthrough. So I remember that just, and the way that she handled it was very gracious. Like I said, she didn't admonish their work, but she gave them a good ass whooping without actually having to like.
Yes.
What are you doing? No. So once again, like I really appreciate having learned from people like herself and Burt and Ruby D, and just how to be gracious and just to be with people, because at that point in their careers, they come from an era where, we could only imagine, when we talk about, like the current, climate of like the racial climate. These people had, some tremendous, obstacles that they had to, overcome, and just to see how gracious they were with people, everyone, it really, it's heartwarming, and it's an inspiration for me to, carry that on and, building my own legacy. You know what I mean?
Well said. And you said, what was the project you said you worked with, and I think you said this, I hope you did, Martin Luther King Jr.'s, you said oldest child?
Yes, Yolanda King.
And what project was that, Norman?
That was a project. It was called The Boy Who Painted Christ Black, and it was actually one of 3 short films that were written by. There were short stories that were written by. Let me get this right, John Henry Clark. I'm going to say. Hold on. I'm going to fact check this myself. I should know this because it was part of my body of work, but old age will chalk it up to that, Okay, that's not what I'm looking for. Anyway, yes, it was a made-for-TV film. It was on HBO. It premiered on HBO, and it was called The Boy Who Painted Christ Black. The other one was Long Black Song, and I forget what the third one is now. Forgive me for that. But yes, it was a really good story.
And those are some, Norman, and those are some amazing names, Norman. That not many people can say they spend time working with Oprah and Maya Angelou and the list of people. That in itself has to mean the world to you. Forget the success, forget the movies, forget all that stuff. Just working with those quality type of people, my God.
Yeah, it is amazing. When I actually stop to think about it, I go, whoa. Obviously, when I was, when I was involved and I was, doing that. I was a kid, so it didn't occur to me that, wow, you're working with legends, which I think is a great thing, because I was able to, not to say that I wouldn't be that way now, but I really was able to just be me. as an individual and not get caught up in, oh my God, this is whoever, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, I really was just able to be me.
Right.
You know, I think that's the greatest thing about that experience.
And Norman, I'm talking to a man who took time away from acting to go after his college degree. I'm talking to a really good guy, a grounded guy. How did you make it out of this thing? And you're still doing a lot of work, a lot of great work. You know, you mentioned your memoir, some other things. How did you make it out unscathed? Because, and then I'm not going to mention names, but we could talk about all the child actors that are no longer on this earth. We could talk about the child actors that, you know, some of the good stories that they've fallen, but they've gotten up again and they've resumed, you know, their lives. But many people don't have a success story when they're child actors. They're very sad stories. What made it different for you? I mean, was it the fact that you had a great support system as a child? What is it about you? I mean, is it that you're a really grounded guy, a really grounded dude? Like, what is it about you?
I'm glad you asked that question. It's a mixture, I would say, of upbringing and faith. You know, what some people may not know, I'm a Nichiren Buddhist. So I practice Nichiren Daishonin as Buddhism. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but we basically chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. A lot of people know of it as the thing that Tina Turner does, but it's a lot more than the thing that Tina Turner does. I feel like, you know, my introduction at such a young age, my parents and my mom actually started practicing Buddhism when I was very young. And I'm still a practitioner of Buddhism myself. So with that philosophy, a lot of, I have to attribute a lot of my success and a lot of, because you're like, wow, you were able to do some magnificent things. Well, in Buddhism, we really believe that, there is nothing that is impossible, and everything that we do, we want to create as much value so that, people can be inspired, touched, moved, and, we can basically show within our lives and what we do, how to create happiness for others. So I feel like having, a really strong, parental unit and, family foundation. And I would say more importantly, my background in faith, and really appreciating that, and practicing, consistently has definitely helped with me being the person that I am now. Because if I didn't have any of those, it could have very well went, either way. And to be honest with you, I mean, there's a lot of other people that are doing great things that you just don't hear about. They're great people, in terms of like, former, child celebrities or whatnot, that, they're good people, but once again, I think we kind of alluded to this earlier in the conversation where, with stereotypes and Hollywood, the media in particular has a really good, they do a really good job at showcasing the negatives, and putting that out and, kind of feeding people, the garbage of what's going on and kind of overlooking people like myself who has happened to, basically literally and figuratively kept his nose clean over the years, and not because I feel any pressure to do that, just because that's who I am.
Right. It's just who you are.
Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not. Yeah, and it's not. I'm not a perfect dude. I mean, there's. We're all human, so we have our shortcomings and all of that. But for the most part, I understand. It's not even understanding like right from wrong, but I understand. The law of cause and effect, and my practice of Buddhism is like, okay, the causes that you make and the things that you do, understand that that's responsibility for that. So you're able to, I was taught that you can do anything you want to do. Go ahead, do that. If you want to do some lines of blow, go ahead. Understand that after you do that, there's responsibility, there's consequences, there's repercussions, there's things that are going to have to take place after that initial cause. And if you're okay with those things that take place after that initial cause, then all right. I mean, who am I? From my parents' perspective, like, who am I to tell you what you can and cannot do once you're, an adult? We can only give you guide you, give you a good blueprint, and it's up to you to, continue that or not.
Oh, well said, Norman. And religion in itself is a beautiful thing. Buddhism is a beautiful religion. And then we look at religions like Christianity and Islam and Judaism. They all come from a really good place of honor and love and peace and just integrity.
Absolutely.
So yeah, well said, my man.
Yeah. And I excuse my language, I think it's just humans have to fuck all that up. But the great part of that is that we're human.
Yes.
But
yes.
we all we got. So if we didn't have in this design of this time to, fuck shit up and get it right and do that cycle over again until we evolve and become, either better or worse. And it really is up to us.
Right, the people that I love, Norman. I'm not going to get too off topic, but the people that I don't really love, but the people that I find ironic are the ones that go out of the way to say, this religion is BS for this reason, or that religion is BS for this reason, or this person in this religion wasn't this who he says he was, or who, you know what? It's like, religions at their base give people something to look at, there's so much beauty about religion, and there's some people that are so hell-bent on trying to tear that down. It's like, if you don't believe in a religion, just shut up and keep it to yourself. Like, I don't know, let people do their thing. If they feel what they feel at the end of the day, it's obviously changed your life. To some degree, it's changed mine. My God, Norman, let people have their time.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the common denominator between any religion or anything that's messed up and people and whatever is, it's usually people. It boils down to people and the particular individual and how they see certain things. So, like you basically kind of, you mentioned, it's like it's not necessarily the religion that is going to make you, or it's not the religion that's the, bad or good or whatever the case. It's the person. There's a lot of great people that practice Christianity. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of great people that are Muslim. There's a lot of great people that are Buddhist. There's an opportunity for all of us to appreciate, and learn from the differences in how we, worship or believe or whatever, as opposed to saying, well, mine is better than yours, and this is the supreme, and this is that. That's when you start to get into this like comparison and who's better, and there's really no value in that at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we all want to be, we all really at our core, we want to be acknowledged as a human being. As such, we want love, we want peace. So however you are able to get that, who am I to say that's wrong?
Right. Well said. And forgive my ignorance, Norman, but Buddhism is the religion that puts a lot of emphasis on, you shouldn't be all about getting possessions. It should be about other people. And I'm really watering this down, but Buddhism, I think, says people shouldn't be so preoccupied with acquiring possessions and acquiring things. It should be about life and people. And am I somewhat in the right ballpark? Yeah,
well, I mean, that's the overall idea, I guess, for, Buddhism in general. But, with Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism, we have our philosophy, I should say, about that is, earthly desires equal enlightenment, which means, as a human being, you're going to want the Benz or the Porsche. You're going to want to have a nice home. You're going to want to be with a good-looking individual and travel and experience things, which, a lot of that, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, takes money. You know what I mean? So with that philosophy of earthly desires equal enlightenment, the more because like our method of, I guess you would say, worship or practice, we chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo to a scroll which is called the Gohonzon, and on the Gohonzon it is down the center. It's Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, and then on that particular scroll there's different scriptures and writings that without getting too much into it, but it's a manifestation of like our daily lives, right? So when we're chanting these words, or we're chanting for, this job or this house or this relationship or whatever. We want these earthly desires, through the process of chanting for, praying for these things to get these things. These things, you can manifest these things, these earthly desires, but in that process, you'll find that, oh my gosh, well, my relationship, if I have a shitty relationship with my sister or my brother, through that process, something may happen where it'll the universe or the cosmic forces or God or whatever you want to call it will force you to now have to deal with that situation. So while you're chasing these earthly desires, there's a lot of other things that are manifesting that are you're able to create good in your life as a result. So you'll find that earthly desires are only, I would say, like a catalyst for you to reach your highest good as an individual, as a person. And also, once again, in the world that we live in, and not to say that everyone that has great things, or not everyone that has like a posh lifestyle, they're going to do great things. But I feel like those of us that want to make a difference in, a major difference or major impact in the world. I mean, if life for us is a little, I would say, more comfortable, you know what I mean? Like, we don't have to worry about how we're going to feed ourselves and all of that. It just, it helps along the process, if that makes sense. So yeah, it is, like I said, a thing in Buddhism where it's like, denounce all of it. But in Nichiren Daishonen's Buddhism, we don't believe in that. We believe in all of it is relevant. And as long as we keep everything in perspective, we can use the tools or the earthly desires that I mentioned can be, a catalyst or, elements that we can use to encourage and help other people become happy.
Yeah, that's well said. Really well said. And, I did want to ask you a few more questions. You've given me almost an hour of your time. I can't thank you enough. So I have to say, just kind of, I'm going to be all over the place here, how close Macaulay Culkin was to playing Devon Butler. I cannot get over that. That I'm so glad that didn't happen.
Everything happens for a reason. Macaulay, the way that I look at it is, simply Macaulay Culkin wasn't Devon Butler. I was. Just like, there's a lot of roles that there's one in particular. I can't think of the role, but was it the one that it was one role that, what's his name? Jack Nicholson. He won an Academy Award for. I know he's got a couple, I believe, but it's one that I can't think of the name of the movie. But speaking of Burt Reynolds, he actually turned that role down. They wanted him, and so Jack Nicholson ended up taking his place, and he won the Academy Award. So people could look at that and say, "Oh my gosh, well, Burt, he could have gotten it. He could. Well, if it was for him to have that award, then he would have had that award."
True. Yeah, very true.
So it's just like, what is for us is for us. And when we learn to appreciate that and understand it, it'll be a lot less like, oh damn, oh yeah, and in this case, like you just mentioned, it's not an all damn thing for me, because I'm like, that was an opportunity of a lifetime. So I'm like, I'm glad Macaulay Culkin or his folks said no, because that gave me an opportunity to, do what I do.
So obviously it's a fun movie. It's a great movie. I have to say, I've had actors and directors of all races and backgrounds, and one of the huge topics of conversation that always seems to pop up is the importance of the role and to people and so forth. How important is it, do you think, for an African-American child to see a really cool portrayal of, and I know it's a fun movie. I'm not saying it's this, I'm not saying it's a groundbreaking, but for an African-American child in 1993 to say, that's really cool. That's fun. That's cool to see someone like me in a movie like that with a huge movie star, and it's a movie that I love. How important, do you ever think about that part of it, Norman? Do you ever think about your impact in 93 and what it could have to kids that are African American. You know, in the same way that Black Panther had an impact on not only just everybody, but just the entity in itself. Do you ever think about it that way?
Well, I think about it a lot more now. Usually, like for me, when I do what I do it because I love it. And of course, there is, if you can tell, I do what I do with consciousness as well.
Sure.
But I don't necessarily set out to like be this figure or whatever. It just kind of with that situation. I mean, it just kind of happened where I'll share another brief story with you. Several months ago, there was a guy who just kind of popped up on my timeline on Facebook, and he's like, man, I'm watching your movie, and because of that movie, I'm now a cop. And wherever he lives, I think he lives in Florida, and he's an African American guy. He's around my age. I think he may be a little older. But he sent me this beautiful message. And, he's like, yeah, because basically in the show is saying, because of you, I am now a cop. So, wow. And that's one out of, several hundred messages that I've gotten over the years of people saying how that movie has impacted them positively. I was going through a tough time, and, I would watch a movie on playback over and over again, and it would just lift my spirits, and it was able to get me out of tough times. So thank you for being, that inspiration. Or, there's other, former child actors or child actors that have, been able to meet, and they're like, man, I remember, because of you in that movie, it made, it made me want to do, what I'm doing now, and these are some people that, I'm not gonna name their names, but these are people that you probably would know that started out, either as child actors or, earlier on in their career. Now they're doing well, and they're like, because of you, so thank you for being an inspiration. So, I mean, that for me, that's like, if I, which is obviously not the plan, but it's like, if I never do anything else, with my acting career per se, like that, I now know that I've been able to affect people, in a positive way, which, really, as a child, I was old enough to know that this is what I want to do with my career, in general. So, and also, of course, have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun filming movies and being on set and just being in that element. It's a lot of fun.
And one of the things that we've been talking about today is the idea of human beings, and think about this. And the fact that this police officer, thanked you. You got to wonder all the lives he's going to affect in a positive way. He's paying it forward. I just think people sometimes, and I've said this before to other actors, people sometimes dismiss the influence that actors have on human beings, and I think that's a huge mistake, because I do believe, I don't think kids watched you and said, oh, he's this, he's that. I think they saw just a cool actor just being great on screen, and I think that actors have such a, I don't want to say responsibility, but I think they have such a unique opportunity to affect more people than they think they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And those that say, you've heard some people say, "Oh, I'm not a role model. I'm not." It's like, well, you may not want to put a title on it, but damn it, you are very visible, whether you want to be or not. So, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not, people think, oh, I want to be an actor, and they kind of romanticize this like life of fame and everybody knowing who you are, and that you have to be a certain type of person in order to handle that.
Right.
And I think that's what's, a lot of people don't understand it until they get to that point, and they're like, oh shit, this is not what I signed up for. Well, too late. Yeah, you did. You just probably didn't realize it. So yeah, it is a responsibility.
So Norman, who impresses you? What movies have you seen lately that you like? What actors have you seen that really you're just totally impressed with?
Man, that's a dreaded question because I'm so sorry, but I'm just not that type of person to be like, oh yeah, well, you know, this movie with this director and that producer and this star. I'm like, dude, if I like something, you know, I like it. If I don't, I don't. I mean, I do. Don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, I believe that there's a lot of, you know, great work that's going on. You mentioned Black Panther. I mean, I was very, very inspired by, you know, the movie itself, and then, you know, of course, the subsequent success. And I was really, really happy about that because it's you know, it's long overdue. But I'm really, I'm just. I will say this too. You know, I am really happy with a lot of the success that, you know, people of color are now starting to really get recognized for. You know, because I feel like, and I say that because on the topic of Cop and a Half and my role as Devon Butler, I feel like had I been, you know, more in the Macaulay Culkin range, and I'm gonna keep it dead ass with you. You know, I feel like that movie would have had an opportunity to be much bigger than it was. You know, and I mean, I won't go into, you know, my experiencing, you know, racism and whatnot in the industry and just in general, you know. But I do feel that I'm really happy to see that it seems like we're now starting to really have the conversations and open up a little bit, and people are having an opportunity to take their shot just to be able to do what they love to do, which is at the very least what people want. Like, I just want to be able to, you know, be an actor or an actress. And but if there's no roles that have been created for me, then, you know, what am I to do? Or if they're being created, then there's stereotypes and all this other shit, you know. So I'm really happy with, you know, like the movie with the My Crazy Asian Family, I believe it is. Like, even movies like that, I'm like, wow, you know, we you know, at a certain point in time, we didn't see movies like that, and these movies are not just like now coming out; they're actually doing well, which is even better. It's not like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll put it out to pacify, and then, you know, it's a flash. Like, these films are and these projects are doing well, so that makes me very happy. You know, when I see that happening.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, Norman, I am that nerdy guy that looks at all movies. I love analyzing movies. I'm a huge fan, obviously, but I'm going to tell you one of the biggest snubs, maybe of all time, is in 12 Years a Slave. Chiwetel Ejiofor should have won.
Yes.
He was. And I've talked about this in other podcasts. It's the biggest snub. He should have won going away because. And I did another podcast where it's my number one historical movie of all time, but he should have won. And that performance, to this very day, just thinking about it brings I can't even finish this sentence because it's just so powerful.
Yeah, you know, I have to agree with you on that. Definitely, man. Yeah.
And one of your big things before I let you go here, and I'm trying to cram all this because you've given me so much time here. I know you spent time as a rapper and a rap artist. I have to say, you know, obviously, I mean, I grew up in a suburban area. I've loved rap my whole life. So I'm going to give you my top rap groups. I want to tell me how many you agree with, because right now, for me, I think right now, rap right now is at an all-time low. That's my opinion. So I'm going to name off 5. You tell me how good I am with my analyzation of who I love. Tribe Called Quest, Public Enemy, De La Soul, NWA, and The Roots.
Okay, dude. Let me ask you this question. Like, have you been in my head? Did you just like go into my head right now, and you know, or I should say, not even my head. Like, did you steal my iPod and go, damn, you know, I've got to like hack into Norman's shit so that I can say these people, and then he'll be like, oh yeah.
No, well, I got to tell you, four of the five I've appreciated my whole life. It took me as I got older to really love and appreciate the Roots. And I know the Roots have connections to other groups. I get that. But yeah. I don't know, man, that encompasses everything for me.
Yeah. I do not disagree with any of those artists, any of those groups. as a matter of fact, that sounds very familiar to my top 5. I mean, you start off with the Tribe Called Quest. I would say they are my favorite all-time rap group. So yeah, you are definitely on the right track with that one. I'm also into, like, I love R&B and soul, so I would add a couple of other artists that I listen to, like, a lot. I would say is Little Brother. They're a rap group out of South Carolina. I love those guys. I mean, they're awesome. They have this record called The Minstrel Show. It came out, I believe, in like 06, 05, somewhere around there. And I feel like it was so... It may have gone over people's heads because it was so, like, on point. Like, each track, like, and if you can imagine, the name of the album is called The Minstrel Show, so you can imagine what it was about. You know, it basically talked about, like, how the rap community and just the music industry, period, is kind of akin to the minstrel show. Sure. Or a minstrel show. But I felt that it was so on point, and maybe because it was so on point at the time, people weren't ready for it. But those guys are super duper talented, and it's a shame that they didn't hit the mark like Tribe or De La Soul or those guys, because it just Fonte and Big Pooh, man, I'm telling you, they are the best. This one song on there that they've got where Big Pooh's rhyming, and like, you listen to the verse and you're like, damn, this is dope. And then he gets to the point, he gets to the end of the verse and he's like, yeah, I got your head, and your head's still bobbing, and my verse didn't rhyme. So I go back and I'm listening to the verse, and he did not rhyme. His entire 16 bars, and I'm like, oh my gosh, all right, he's dope. Like, all right, yeah. So yeah, those guys, and then of course, like Jill Scott, Erykah Badu, a lot of those soul sisters, man, they are a lot of soul in what they do, and passion. Dwayne, he's another artist out of Detroit. Yeah, man. So I mean, now music. That's one thing. I probably could have you online for another hour just talking about music. But yeah, man. Your top 5, I have to say yes. Yeah, you got it going on.
I feel honored that we're connected in that way. And then your next appearance on this show, Norman, we're going to talk just music, and I'm dying to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, we could do that. I could talk. Yeah, we could do that for sure.
Okay, so before I let you go here, I want you to promote anything you want, whatever's going on. You mentioned a memoir earlier. Give out your contact information, your social media, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm going to leave this next 30 seconds up to you.
All right. Well, I'm producing a web series called Blues Brothers. Or actually, I've changed the name to Behind the Scenes of Blues Brothers. Basically, it's about me trying to maintain my lifestyle. Everything that we talked about in this interview. As a former child actor living, I guess, a quote unquote normal life. So that's in production. It's been a work, labor of love, but we're moving with that. My social media is, I'm on Facebook. I have my page is Norman D. Golden II. That's my professional page. So anybody's listening, please go and like. I'm trying to get a little bit more active with that in terms of updates for my project. Another project that I did back in 2017 was a short film called Misperception. That is in post-production right now. We're going to release that possibly next year, festival circuit, and then, online for people to actually view. I want to turn that into a series, so that's, we're trying to stay positive with that. What else? That's pretty much it. Social, Instagram, I'm Golden Child 2. I mentioned Facebook already, and it is about it.
Norman, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show today. You've been so patient with me, just lining this up. His name is Norman D. Golden II. He is one absolutely solid talent, but he's even a better human being Norman, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate those awesome compliments, too.
Now let's get right on down to the skit. A baby is brought into a world of pits. And if we could have talked that soon in a delivery room, it would have asked the nurse for a hit. The reason for this, the mother is a jerk. Excuse me, junkie, which brought the work of the old into a new life. What a way. But this what a way has been a way of today. Anyway, push couldn't shove me to understand a path to a basic. Cause humans should have raced it in a first wave. Cause second wave from believers and believers will walk to it, then even talk to it and say, y'all can't have none of that. Tell them what to say, Mace. Time to get into this. Word to the mother, I'll tell the truth, so bear my witness. Fly like birds of a feather, dressed like pleather, you don't wanna wear it. No need to ask that question, just don't mention, you know what the answer is. Now I never fancy Nancy, but the statement she made held a plate of weight. I even stressed it to wait. Did he take any heat? Nah, the boy was hooked, you could phrase the word base, and the kid just shook. In his fashion class, once A now and then, the rock rules him now, the only designs left were once clothes made for Oshkosh has converted to nothing but stonewash. Now hopping in a barrel is a barrel of fun, but don't hop in if you wanna be down, son, cause down can mean down and out is an action. What does it lead to? Down. People say, what have I done for all my years? My tears show my hard-earned work. I heard shoving is worse than pushing, but I'd rather know a shover than a pusher, cause a pusher's a jerk. The platforms of feet more than charity, but the cause doesn't coincide with the ride of insanity. Is it a chant that slant the soul to feel for it? I know it's the border that flaunts the order to kill for it. Standing, steaming on a young one, thinking this time 8 balls for a cool player. Racked it off, tried to break Miss Q, got beat by the boy in blue. Next day you're out by the spot once more, looking hard for a crack in the hole. I asked what's the fix for the ill stuff. Word to the zero, the answer should have been no. Run me a score from the funky 4 plus one more. Rewind that back. This is the age for a new stage of pain. Watch how the zombies scream, Mr. Crack. Plain is plain, they should have slain it from the start. Behind the ideals of cranking up the heart, now the bass claims shot over every part.